We're here from Bringing Up Book Lovers. I'm Phyllis Wheeler, author, and
I'm Sarah Boble, homeschooling mom, and today we're going to talk about Thick as Thieves by Susan K. Marlow. Um, Phyllis, can you give a little summary of what the book is about?
yes, it is. It's a western. So this is a really good book for girls like me who, like I was, who love horses. This is a girl named Andy Carter, who's 13, and she's the first thing that happens is her horse, her mare, gives birth, and there's some tension, but it turns out to be twins. So that takes up a bit of the book, the excitement over twins, and then the main story comes along. So Andy's in school, and this girl shows up who is unkempt, belligerent, and rude, and also she can't read. So she is just generally torturing everybody in the class. So and she's Andy's seatmate. So Andy uh, asked the teacher, "Can you move me somewhere else, please?" And the teacher says, "No. Why don't we do something that's a little kinder and gentler? Why don't you try to make friends with Macy?" Well, that's a tall order for Andy. So she works on it, and her brother is running the ranch that her family lives on. I discovered that rustlers are stealing their cattle. So that's a big mystery. Who is doing that? Well, this book has quite a bit of Christian teaching in it about how to deal with these struggles with the aid of memorized scripture. So some things come to mind, and she's able to work on solving these things. So I'm not going to tell you how it ends. So
Yeah, no spoilers. Did you like the story? Did you think it was a good story?
I did like it. I did. I thought that Andy was a consistent young heroine. She comes from a privileged family. Is probably the wealthiest ranchers around, and got into her head very well, and the challenges, the interior challenges that she had, and this in this book, this problem of how to be a friend to this uncooperative person.
She didn't want to have a friend.
Oh.
Yeah. So what were some of the themes in the book that stood out?
Well, I think kindness definitely. That, and we really need to reach out to people who are maybe not being kind to us, and just a general feeling of not focusing on yourself all the time. It was refreshing.
Yeah, especially in the book, it turned out Macy had reasons for not being kind. She had never had kindness shown to her, or it had been a long time. So it was kind of you never know what other people are, going through kind of thing. So
Right. Yeah. The friendship did eventually develop. I'll spoil it that much. So we do get inside Macy's motivations somewhat, and she is kind of a very needy individual.
yeah. What did you think about the character development of, I guess, our main character there, Andy?
I thought it was good. I thought Andy does take some steps away from being the spoiled little rich girl towards being able to reach out to someone and bless them.
Yeah. Did you think the author did a good job of capturing what it felt like to be the main character? She was a spoiled rich girl, but she also was kind of naive, I felt like, too, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought she did a good job. I have no complaints with any of it, really. Well,
Yeah.
the opening sequence with the horse giving birth to twins, I thought was too long. But, that's pretty minor, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like the book was going to be about that because it was kind of long and it was really just a small thing in the end.
Yeah.
I guess it came up later. Um, any memorable scenes? Overall likes and dislikes?
Well, there's a scene where Andy's really afraid for her life. And she's hiding in outdoors in a little canyon, hiding from some people. And so I remember that part. She was just terrified. So, yeah.
There was also a runaway horse scene that I was pretty vivid, I felt like.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I think I've been on a runaway horse, so I empathized with that. Yeah. Any overall likes and dislikes? Or dislikes? And or?
Well, I do think it's a very good book for a Christian homeschool. If you're trying to teach your child to rely on biblical wisdom, this book does help show how to do that. Not just tell you to do it, but show you somebody doing that. And I thought that was a very good, strong point.
Yeah, I did too. The only thing I didn't like was that the author had Andy's brothers calling her sis, and I just didn't think that was authentic to the period. It was like the 1800s, I think. So that kind of bothered me more than it probably should have, but that was there in case anybody else is caring about the historical accuracy.
Yeah, that is a question. Like, what did they call their sisters back then? I do know of, people who are 3 or 4 generations back from me who called each other sissy.
Yeah.
So, sister or sissy.
I don't know. Like, I just don't think the Little House books and all those other books from even other countries, I guess, it didn't seem to match, but I didn't do my research, so I don't know.
You thought that the tone wasn't maybe perfectly fit to the time period?
Yeah, if it was going to be some kind of historical fiction, then that just didn't seem to be accurate. But I guess I don't know that for 100%. So,
and also, it's hard to say what they really talked like back then, and if we did actually mirror what they said, it might be kind of off-putting for the modern reader. So you gotta the writer has to strike a balance there to be able to be easily read by the modern reader.
Yeah, I wouldn't put in something that's not accurate, though. I mean, I understand modifying something, but putting in something it sounded like the Berenstain Bears to me, honestly. Like, hey sis, hey brother. That's what it reminded me of. So,
oh dear, didn't
remind me. It could be a personal issue for me. So,
yeah, right.
But let's see, anything potentially controversial for homeschoolers?
I didn't see a thing.
Yeah, me neither. And I think we answered the question or addressed the question of how is it redemptive, because we did have the minor spoiler of, yes, Andy pursues this girl and this girl doesn't want to be pursued at all. But the kindness does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Right.
Do you have any other comments?
Well, I would say that if you're a homeschooling family who is not Christian, you might want to pick a different book. This is a Christian book.
Yeah, there's definitely scripture, and it sets the tone for their family,
right?
Too.
Yeah. And Yeah, there is a study guide for homeschoolers, a free one actually, that goes with the book,
Mhm.
if that is of interest to anybody.
Should they just email you for it?
Well, if you go to her website and look
Oh,
under study guides, you'll find it. Just look
okay.
for Thick as Thieves study guides, and it's a thick one. It's a unit study.
Okay. So we're going to talk to Susan Marlow here in just a second. So don't go anywhere.
Okay. So, welcome, Susan K. Marlow, to Bringing Up Book Lovers, where we've been reviewing your book and having a good time talking about the themes in it and so on. So where do you live?
I live in north central Washington State, up near the Canadian border. We're at like 3,400 feet, and that means we get lots of sun in the summer and lots of snow in the winter. Western Washington has all the rain. We have all the sunshine. So that's where I am.
So it's a desert, really, right?
No, we're surrounded by trees. We're up in the right by the national forest, Ponderosa pine, rolling foothills. It's actually beautiful. Down in the valley, it's orchards and irrigated stuff with the Columbia River and all that. So we don't live near the Eastern Washington desert or wheat or wheat country either.
So are you on a ranch?
No, we are on about 14 acres of homestead Ponderosa pine. And you can see in back of me, we've got like a A-frame cabin that's been here since the 60s that we bought. My daughter, she's the one who lives in Andy country down in California. She's got about 5 acres, horses. They just had a foal. And so she's the one with the little mini ranch right smack in the setting where most of my books are set.
Which is in the San Joaquin Valley.
Well, yes, that's where Fresno is. The San Joaquin Valley sort of takes up a huge spot, but as in my books, the ranch sort of spreads out into the foothills. So they have the valley to do all their orchard stuff, and then all the foothills is all for the rangeland and stuff. So it's like thousands and thousands of acres. So. And my daughter lives in kind of the foothills region, so it's really great for photography opportunities. So
someone who's not all that familiar with California, like me, might want to know, like, more or less, where is this? Is it closer to LA or closer to San Francisco?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, the San Joaquin Valley, Fresno and stuff is just about, southeast of, say, San Francisco, located in Central California. Southern California is quite a distance. It's 4 hours by car to get to the outskirts of LA. You have to go through the Tehachapi Mountains. There's a lot between where my setting is. It's right along the Sierras. So to the northeast would be Yosemite. So they have all the advantages of the mountains and the foothills and stuff. But I said it there because I wanted my character also get an opportunity to have an adventure in San Francisco too, which was the largest city on the West Coast in those days. So.
This is part of a Thick as Thieves, the book we've been looking at, is part of a big series, right? Of books. They're all about Andy Carter.
They are. They're more like when I go to homeschool conventions and they want to know the quick, 1 minute intro. It's sort of like a Little House on the Prairie, and in fact, that Laura starts at age 6, and the books sort of culminate with her getting married. But think of it out west combined with a real exciting, adventurous, like Old West TV series like Bonanza, for anybody who's old enough to remember that show. So I've kind of combined that in my series.
Okay. Great.
Did the idea for it come from visiting your daughter down there? Because right before I read your book, I read The Red Pony by John Steinbeck. Yeah. And not like similar in tone at all, but the setting, he has that one man in the book that goes and climbs up into the mountains, and I was like, oh, it's I can picture that just in both books. So
Well, what I did is, at the time, my daughter wasn't living there, and I wanted to set my series in California because setting it in Washington in those days, you can't do much with horses. The eastern side of the mountains is just like nothing. It's not even a state. California was already a state. It had San Francisco. It was really being built up fast because of the gold rush. And what I did, I wanted my characters to live close enough to the mountains that I could have adventures going that way too. So I just looked on a map, Moran McNally Atlas, and said, which city is the closest to the Sierra Nevada? And it was Fresno. So I said, looks good to me. And so then I visited countless times, both San Francisco and that area until I really got to know it. And then now that my daughter lives there, now we spend the winters there, and that just, it's really confirmed that I wasn't off on any of my research, that it was pretty accurate. So.
So how did you go about doing the research for that time period of the area?
For Thick as Thieves, that just sort of grew from the other books. The Circle C Adventures was the first series I wrote, and Thick as Thieves is the first book of that the older girl series when she's a teenager. Mm-hmm. But I just went down to Fresno, and we drove around in the mountains, and I read a lot of primary source ranching kind of books, like if you're familiar with Ralph Moody, Little Britches, The Home Ranch, and all of those wonderful books about the turn of the century in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And I just learned a lot by reading about an actual kid who was working with horses. And another thing is in Thick as Thieves, Taffy has her twin foals. So I wasn't sure how accurate that was going to be. I watched some stuff on the internet and everything, but I have another author friend whose son is a rancher in Texas. So I had her send him the first couple chapters to see if it even had any authenticity. And he sent it back saying it looked great. So that's kind of was a confirmation that I wasn't completely off either. So
now you, I believe, are a teacher originally. Is that right? Yes.
I have a degree in elementary education. I've taught at our Christian schools. I've substituted in the school districts off and on, but then I homeschooled, so that sort of set my course for the next 20 some years. And when I went back, I substituted like one day and said, okay, I'm too old for this. So I decided I'd rather edit, and that's a pretty lucrative business instead of substituting. Although I love the kids and I miss the kids, but it was time to move on.
So how many kids do you have that you homeschooled?
I have 4. My daughter's the oldest, and she actually homeschools as well. She has 8.
Oh.
And then I have, another son who they did not homeschool. And then I have 2 younger ones, and they don't even have any kids. They're millennials. So I have 4. But I helped my daughter homeschool her 8. So I'm kind of back in the saddle. So I've never really lost connection with the homeschool community, sort of kind of ingrained in there since my first one was homeschooled. Just keeps on going. So.
Awesome. So did you start writing these books because you saw a hole in the market for homeschoolers?
No, actually, this is a full disclosure interview. I used to love watching those old Western TV shows like Bonanza, Big Valley, Rifleman, all of those. And I just thought that some of those series were missing a key component, and that was another younger character. So I would just sort of write my own kind of fan fiction about these series, and got great ideas and wrote them. And I let some of my friends, they were actually really shy, believe it or not. And I was too shy to have them ever published or have anyone look at them. But the ones who I did have them read them said, you have got to get these published. And I said, no, I don't think so. But I'm afraid that God had other plans, and through a lot of different things that happened, I changed all the names, I changed the settings, and I just kind of used those series as a jumping off and completely wrote a whole bunch of different stories, and then they ended up getting published. It was no particular reason, like I'm going to fill a need. I wrote for myself. I just loved reading, those, just loved watching the shows, loved reading about them. So I just wrote for myself, and my mentor said, you need to let other people read them too. So that's how I ended up getting published many years ago.
So this was, this fan fiction thing is not, you were an adult, right? Not a teen or anything.
Oh, there's a huge fan fiction thing out there.
No, I mean for you. What age were you? Were you?
As an adult, but I'm really actually only about 12 on the inside. And so I love young adults. I mean, I love Caddy Woodlawn, and I love all those great young adult books. I loved yours, Phyllis. I loved reading about kids that age and the stuff that they go through, and especially when you can make it real like that. I appreciate young adult books that are written well. I don't like the ones that are just thrown together, but there's some great young adult books out there. So I wrote fan fiction for myself because I wanted to read about a younger character.
And you wanted to read about a girl.
That's exactly right. A girl that can have all these adventures, rather than, they can have just as great adventures as boys, I started writing back about 1991 is when I first got really enamored for writing this series. Before then, there's the secret. I wrote Star Trek fan fiction when I was a teenager because that's when that show came on. I'm like, that's how old I am. It influenced me as age 13 when it came on, and I thought, I'm going to put myself on that starship. So that's kind of how I started writing the fan fiction. I didn't know that's what it was called in those days, but there you go. And actually I have this writing, online writing class that I'm starting. And one of the things that the kids need to know is it's hard work to create a universe from scratch. And so I actually encourage kids who say they have a favorite movie, like the Star Wars, for instance. Use that universe. Write stories using someone else's universe so you can learn the skills that you need without having to invent everything. Like my grandson wrote a Star Wars story. I even published it for him on Lulu. And he pretended he was Luke Skywalker's long lost, missing younger brother. And it's a delightful story. Of course, he can never really publish it for real, but it gave him the opportunity to develop his skills, like I said, without having to think up everything. So I know some teachers don't like it, use your own imagination, but I'm afraid I have to disagree. I say, write what you like to write. If you love to write fan fiction, write fan fiction. It's a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, I hear Twilight got started like that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
It was fan fiction.
Fan fiction. That's great. So anyway, that was my little plug for any young writers that are listening out there.
That's great advice, I think. Might as well go to the nitty-gritty part. Skip all those details to start with. You've been writing on about the Carter family since 1991, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're still writing about them, right?
I actually am. I have 2 new books that are coming out because Andy gets married at the end of the series, and the fans did not want me to end there.
Do you have a new series that you're thinking about then, or because it sounded like you were? I wasn't sure. Did you marry? Got married.
That's the 2 books that are coming out are 2 collections of short stories. But I'm not, they would like me to do another series. Oh my goodness, would they like me to, but I'm just really involved now in my new Zoom writing class. And I love the marketing aspect of the book stuff. And helping my daughter homeschool. I just really don't have time to write books, though. They would like I have a boys series called Gold Town Adventures, and there's only 4 books in that series, and they would love the other 2 books to be finished because I have a contract for the other 2 books, but we just never got around to getting those 2 books done. And my editor is willing to brainstorm with me. But I have like 30 some books. They're all set in California, and I'm sort of running out of ideas on what can happen next that I haven't already done. I mean, people brainstorm with me, and I say, hey, fans, give me some ideas. Oh, what about a cougar? Been there, done that 2 or 3 times. Okay. Well, what about this? Oh, done that. And what about that? Done that. So that's kind of what I'm up against, something fresh and new that doesn't seem like it's rehashed. And also with the boy main character, who's also 12 and 13 in his series. So
Sounds like you might need a new setting. That might help.
yeah, but my heart is in California. My heart is on this ranch. And they asked that too. They said, well, you did something with the riverboat, but it was on the Sacramento River. You could go to St. Louis or do something in Missouri. And my heart is not in St. Louis, I'm afraid. No offense to you Missouri people, but I just love the ranching thing. And I don't know if I could get my heart behind another whole character at this point. I mean, if it
Is
happens.
that series also in the same time period as this one? Same time period?
Yes. The Gold Town is set about, maybe 15 years earlier, but Andy's older brother, Chad, that's in the books. He's a guest star in one of the boys' books of the Gold Town, and he's 12. So they're kind of combined, but Andy's not in them, of course, because she'd be way too little, but that's the way I put them together. They're about, I don't know, 100 miles away or something up in the gold country, up in the Sierra. So they're sort of together, but not so much. I mean, I did a little beginning series for the little boys, and those have been really popular because there's not much for little boys to read that are learning to read. And there's Magic Tree House and stuff like that. But I wanted to do that book, that series I did write with a view toward a need in the market overall, not just the homeschool market. But the boys, they would say, oh, we love your little ranching books, but there's a girl on the cover, and can't we get books for little boys? We have nothing for our little boys to read. So I did do that. And then those dovetail into the older series, same characters and stuff.
Right. And we need to mention that you've written unit studies or study guides for every one of your books, or
every single one of them. In fact, every day I've been working on the ones that go with, they go with these 2 new books that I'm doing. I don't know if that's going to, those are the 2. I'm working on study guides for all of these books. The older kids don't need the lap books anymore, so I'm going to phase the lap books out of the series with Thick as Thieves for that series and just expand the study guide. It's going to probably end up being probably close to 300 or more pages, because for middle school, and that's what you write too, the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they need some deep critical thinking. They need they don't need lap books to cut and paste anymore. They need to write. They need to dig into some grammar, vocabulary and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really expanding this series with the Thick as Thieves, that whole series, for the study guides. So
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I really thank you for spending some time with us today.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We enjoyed the book. It was a really fun story. So this is Susan Marlow's book, Thick as Thieves, which is part of a whole series of books about Andy and her family. So check them out. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you very much for having me.